Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this is going to be my 10.0 Dragonflight Destruction Warlock DPS guide. In it, we're going to be covering talents, single target, AOE, rotations in single target, as well as AOE stats, pets, consumables, gems, enchants, tier gear, and a few other things potentially along the way. Now, if you see any weak ORs, add-ons, or profiles in this video you'd like to acquire, links to my Twitch and my Discord down below. We can hop in and grab them all for free. !WA, and either will pull the link up for you to my Wago and my Pastebin, where they're all there for you guys. If you'd like to support on Patreon, there's a link up here, as well as a few other social media links you can check out if you like. With that being said, let's just jump right into the video. So, getting into the class tree for Destruction Warlock, off the bat, Warlock's class tree is not incredibly exciting when it comes to a lot of DPS traits, but what it has is a lot of throughput, survivability, and just defensiveness. So off the first row here, we're going to put 1 point in Fell Domination and 1 point in Burning Rush. Fell Domination giving you a shorter pet summon cast time. Once every 3 minutes, if your pet dies, you can pull a pet out quickly. It's fast, effective, all the above. Burning Rush, movement speed increase. You do take damage when Burning Rush is active. However, putting 2 points in Fiendish Stride here reduces the damage taken by Burning Rush by 50%, which is very, very strong, to the point where you can almost leave Burning Rush on permanently without really needing any kind of healing due to the rest of your tree healing you a lot. 2 points being put in Fell Armor here for just a flat damage reduction taken and a bit of a Soul Leech bump. 2 points in Demon Skin, more Soul Leech value. 1 point in Curses of Enfeeblement, being Tongues or Exhaustion. Good in Mythic Plus at times, good in Rating at times, Tongues mostly. Exhaustion can be used at times too, depending on what you're doing, but just good all around traits to have. 1 point in Demonic Embrace for a flat 10% stamina increase. 1 point in Demonic Inspiration. Whenever you fill a shard, your pet does more damage. Back to the right side here, putting 1 point in Mortal Coil, a 45-second cooldown, 20% heal, and a 3-second end cap, very strong. 1 point in Demonic Fortitude, 1 point in Wrath of Minion, being another pet damage increase. It's great to have around, just good damage in general. And Demonic Fortitude being a 5% stamina increase. So you have Demonic Fortitude being 5 to you and your pets, and a flat 10 from Demonic Embrace right here, plus 2 DPS traits in Demonic Inspiration and Wrath of Minion. Now, you can go into Demonic Gateway here if you'd like, coming out of Wrath of Minion. It's very good in certain settings, okay in others. Maybe certain spots where you don't really want Demonic Gateway. If you don't, it's fine. You can move the point somewhere else. Let's say to like Nightmare or something along those lines. Banish, Amplified Curse. But keep in mind, Demonic Gateway connects to Shadow Fury, which is a very good CD to have. Mythic Plus and Rating at times, just good AoE stun to have around on a 1 minute cooldown. Putting 1 point here in either Dark Accord or Strength of Will. So Strength of Will gives Unending Resolve a 15% additional damage reduction, which is very strong to have around in most settings. Dark Accord gives you a shorter cooldown on Unending Resolve, so it depends what you're looking for. Just more frequent cast of UR or a larger Unending Resolve shield overall. It'll probably depend on the setting you're in, if it's more frequent incoming damage or not as frequent, larger just burst of damage. So coming out of actual Demonic Inspiration here, we have the return of Sweet Souls. 1 point in Sweet Souls, passive, more Hellstone healing to you. Anytime a person in your raid pops a Hellstone, you heal for that amount as well. Very strong to have around. 1 point in Dark Pact, which is basically usually a 1 minute cooldown. However, speccing into Frequent Donor makes it a 45-second cooldown, which is exceptionally strong. A large shield on a 45-second cooldown, which is very, very effective in Mythic Plus and raiding and PvP if you can use the shield effectively to negate a lot of incoming damage in a pretty short time frame. So at this point, you have the choice of either Accrue Vitality or Lifeblood. As Destro, we're taking Lifeblood here, putting 1 point in Soul Link, 1 point or 2 points in Synergy, 2 points in Soul Conduit, 1 point in Fell Synergy here. And you have the option of spending 3 points sort of wherever you want here. Now, Soul Link, just flat damage reduction taken, damage taken by your pet instead of you. Good to have around. 2 points in Soul Conduit. Every shard you spend has a 10% chance to be refunded. Good overall damage. Just good damage trait. One of the few we have in the tree. Synergy being a chance to proc a 10% damage increase on you or your pet. Good to have around as well. And Fell Synergy being just another bonus to Soul Leech and passive healing. Now you have 3 points to spend here as Destro, which, I mean, 1 point should realistically go into either Summon Soulkeeper or Inquisitor's Gaze. They are both very small damage increases. They do some damage though. Some is better than none, theoretically. So 1 point in Inquisitor's Gaze in single target. If you're looking at AoE, Soulkeeper can be worthwhile. And you have 2 points to spend here sort of wherever you want. You can put it in Banish, Amplify Curse. You can put it in Resolute Barrier for more just raw DRs. You can put it in Accrue Vitality, Warfiend's Resolve. A handful of places you can put these points. The thing here is that the point I want to drive home is the Warlock class tree is incredibly customizable. A lot of defensiveness, a lot of tankiness, some damage-based effects, and a lot of utility. If you want to put these like final point, 1 point in Soul Burn here, for Demonic Circle empowerments. Demonic Gateway empowerments, Drain Life, Health Funnel, Health Stones. That's more than fine. If you want to put 2 points in Resolute Barrier for a shorter ending resolve cooldown, keep in mind also here, Strength of Will, Dark Accord, synergy there. Or if you want to go Grim Feast, which not very good at Destro, but it's an option. There are options in the Warlock class tree. You're not missing out on a DPS trait if you're trying to grab, Soul Burn or Grim Feast. You have points left over for even more utility. That's exceptionally strong. So getting into Destro's single target talents here, this has been the build that's been the most consistent and just strongest for me when it comes to, well, single target play. Now, the weird thing about Destro in single target is that it's not bad damage-wise, but you have to put a point in either Rain of Fire or Havoc to access the second row here and open everything up. You need to spend 8 points. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But to open up the rest of these points here, you have to put a point in Havoc or Rain of Fire, which feels bad in pure single target, but hey, it is what it is. It's the world we live in. So off the bat here, Chaos Bolt. 1 point in Reverse Entropy, giving you a chance to get a haste proc for 8 seconds. 1 point in Conflict Rate, obviously. 1 point in Backdraft, giving you basically a hasted Chaos Bolt, Incinerate, or Soulfire whenever you Conflict Rate. This has been changed from Shadowlands. It is not 4 stacks max anymore, it's 2. They changed that. I don't know why, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So we come down from here, going 1 point in Explosive Potential, giving you a reduced CD on Conflict Rate, which is very strong due to the talent over here, Roaring Blaze. Roaring Blaze. Conflict Rate, Incinerate, or Conflict Rate increases your Soulfire, Channel Demon Fire, Immolate, Incinerate, and Conflict Rate damage to the target by 25% for 8 seconds. That's a long time. Your baseline Conflict Rate cooldown duration, at least mine right now, is 8.9 seconds with this factored in and haste, which means that you can basically maintain a permanent Roaring Blaze effect if you're playing this ability with 2 charges of Conflict Rate baseline. A strong single target increase in every setting, certainly worthwhile over getting a 3rd stack of Conflict Rate. And over here, to the right, we have Channel Demon Fire, which is a previous old capstone from Shadowlands. It's a channeled ability. And 2 points below it, a new ability, Raging Demon Fire. Channel Demon Fire, commonly referred to as CDF, fires an additional 5 bolts. Each bolt increases the remaining duration of Immolate on all targets hit by 0.5 seconds. All targets hit meaning this spell cleaves around your main target. It's actually been pretty good in single target. And the cool thing is that your Immolate rarely ever falls playing CDF due to this ability. It's very good, solid all around, and once again, indeed affected by Roaring Blaze. So coming out of Roaring Blaze, 1 point in Soulfire. A good ability, it's a old ability, I guess. It's a 45-second cooldown, theoretically, that generates 1 shard whenever you cast it. It burns enemy's soul, dealing a lot of fire damage and applying Immolate. So between Soulfire, CDF, and Raging Demon Fire, there's a very low chance you have to really reapply Immolate a whole lot in single target or even cleave settings. If you're playing these talents, Immolate's almost like nearly permanent. The trait below it, Soulfire, goes into Decimation here. Your Incinerate and Conflict Rate cast on targets that have 50% or less health reduce the cooldown of Conflict Rate, reduce the cooldown of Soulfire by 5 seconds. So this makes Soulfire go from being a 45-second CD to like 20, 25-ish when a mob is below half health. In raiding, if you're playing Destro in a patchwork setting, even a cleave setting, this makes Soulfire CD much shorter. So more shard gen. You can indeed Havoc a Soulfire. You can apply Immolate to both targets. Havocing a Soulfire will generate 2 shards. It's just good all around, and it's worthwhile damage-wise, and also affected by Roaring Blaze. Now below this is your big reward. You have 2 points in Ruin. Increases the damage of Conflict Rate, Channel Demon Fire, Shadow Burn, and Soulfire by 20%. Conflict Rate, Channel Demon Fire, both listed here, and Soulfire, also listed here under Roaring Blaze. So a lot of fire-based damage effects over on this left side of the tree here. Roaring Blaze, Soulfire, Decimation, Ruin. 1 point in Summon Infernal here. Baseline 3-minute Infernal. It's unfortunate it wasn't 2 minutes in Dragonflight. You can get it to 2 minutes if you go down to here, but we're not really doing that right now. Baseline 3-minute Infernal. Just big Infernal, half-minute cooldown, more shard gen, some AOE damage. It's good to have around. Backing up a bit here, 2 points in Flashpoint, which gives you a stacking haste proc whenever a target is above 80% health. So if there's multiple targets spawning on a fight, Immolate them fast, stacking haste amp feels good. Even when you're pulling a boss initially, that initial haste amp feels great as Destro, opening up in single target. And this leads into 2 points in Ashen Remains and 2 points in Eradication. Eradication says Chaos Bolt increases the damage dealt to the target by increases your damage dealt to the target by 10% for 7 seconds. So essentially, once every 7 seconds, you want to cast a Chaos Bolt to maintain Eradication. And 2 points in Ashen Remains. Chaos Bolt Incinerate, deal 10% increased damage to targets inflicted by your Immolate. So Immolate, keep it up. It's basically permanent with this effect, this, and if it falls, you can just reapply it manually. But 2 solid single target / cleave amps here. These lead into 1 point in Dial Block Embers, a legendary, Shadowlands. Incinerate now generates 100% additional soul shard fragments. Very strong, just feeds more chaos bolts, all the above. More chaos bolts, higher eradication uptime. There's that. 2 points in Madness of the Azek here. This is also a legendary from Shadowlands. Chaos Bolt damage increased by 25% and reduces the cast time of Chaos Bolt by 20% for 4 seconds. It's actually 5 seconds. The tooltip hasn't been updated yet, but it's 5 seconds for Chaos Bolt. I believe it's 5 for all of them, actually. Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, and Shadowburn if you're playing it. We're not playing Shadowburn, but it's still there. A very strong single target damage amp if you can maintain the Madness window. Talk about it more in the rotation section coming up. 1 point in Chaos Incarnate. Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, and Shadowburn always gain maximum benefit from your mastery chaotic energies. Chaos Bolt always also crits, so this is a very strong ability in nearly any setting. Gaining max master benefit and removing the RNG of Destro is very strong. Every Chaos Bolt hits as hard as it can. Every Rain of Fire, every Shadowburn, barring like Rain of Fire, Shadowburn, crits, and all that. Very strong ability for 1 point. Very easy to get to as well, coming through Madness and Dial Block Embers. And over here we have 1 point. Ritual of Ruin. Master Ritualist, Avatar of Destruction. This is your 2-piece and your 4-piece from Sepulchre. Every 12 shards, you get Ritual of Ruin, making your next Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire consume no soul shards and have its cast time reduced by 50%. So basically, Rain's still instant, Chaos Bolt's a really fast cast, and down here, this is your big Purple Infernal, Shard Gen, AOE, all the effects from Shadowlands you get here. A bit more of a watered down version with no Rain of Chaos, but still very good overall. And 2 points here. This is the final glue that holds the spec together in single target or cleave. Burn to Ashes. Chaos Bolt and Rain of Fire increase the damage of your next 2 incinerates by 30%. And it stacks 4 times. Incinerate damage increase. Incinerate damage increase. It's pretty strong. It might not be affected by Ruin, but still, baseline Incinerate damage increase with Burn to Ashes, also Roaring Blaze being here. This build's thing is consistency. Big damage, Infernal obviously helps. You can consistently maintain a pretty strong single target based profile. All right, so looking at destruction in a 2 target cleave setting, something along the lines of having 2 permanent targets. Basically, if Havoc's off cooldown, you can put it back on cooldown and get that big Destro cleave profile that the spec is known for. I'd start with something like this roughly. I will say off the bat, CDF being Channel Demon Fire is good in single target. It's good in stat cleave as well. There might be certain 2 target cleave settings where you can't get Channel Demon Fire cleave value, and to a similar extent, the case might be the same for Cry Havoc, which if they're not stacked, you can't get good Cry Havoc cleave, can't get good CDF cleave. So you can shift these points maybe to like improved Immolate, maybe even Scalding Flames if you wanted here, or to straight up play Pandemonium. But Rolling Havoc, big damage increase on cleave fights, Flashpoint, Eradication, Ashen Remains. You basically have the same profile you had before. You have Ritual of Ruin, Master Ritualist, 1 out of 2 points. We don't have enough points for 2, but it's fine. So Ritual of Ruin, full Burn to Ashes, 1 out of 2 Master Ritualist, 1 out of 1 Avatar Destruction, Double Madness, certainly getting Chaos Incarnate for that big just Chaos Bolt cleave. 1 point here in Dial Block Embers, and 1 point in Summon Infernal. Now, you could very well say, hey, I want to play a different build, maybe not as much built around the, 2-piece, 4-piece Avatar Destruction Ritual of Ruin build, and just say, hey, okay, we go like this. We go 2 points here and pull a point maybe from Embers and just go like this. You have big 2-minute Infernal with Grand Warlock design, big Crashing Chaos. You're still getting Ritual of Ruin, still getting Burn to Ashes, still getting Madness, and still getting Chaos Incarnate. Both builds are fine. I played a build more similar to this in Cleave fights, but however, both are good. Burn to Ashes solid for that consistent cleave damage, and Havoc outside of Havoc, just big cleave, maximum mastery from Chaos Incarnate, all the above. This build is very good in those cleave-based settings, depending on what you want. Now, if you're looking at more of an AOE kind of build for Destro, there are 2 different builds I've played with and seen played in Mythic Plus. The first build being this build. This is more of like a middle ground kind of hybrid build. You have Cataclysm, CDF, Raging Demon Fire. You have Havoc, you have Cry Havoc, no Rolling Havoc here, but you have Cry Havoc for that stacked Chaos Bolt cleave profile. You have Ritual of Ruin, you have Avatar Destruction, Burn to Ashes for more consistent damage. You could put these points here into Master Ritualist for just faster Infernals or faster 2-piece, 4-piece. Double Madness, Infernal, Crashing Chaos, and Wilfred's here as well, or Grand Warlock's design for a 2-minute-ish Infernal. Still playing Roaring Blaze for that good single target profile. This build's a good middle ground. I've had a lot of success with it, and plus casting like going into a pack, opening on a Cataclysm to apply multiple immolates for fast flashpoint stacks right into a CDF with immolate extensions from Raging Demon Fire, then into a Havoc window with just Chaos Bolt Cleave and Cry Havoc feels really good and just really, really rewarding. If you want to spam Rain of Fire and mass AoE, you can with this build. If you wanted to play Inferno over Kata, that'd be fine too. This build is a bit customizable. If you really wanted, say, rolling Havoc instead, you could just pull points out of here and maybe put a point from CDF into Backlash. But I do think CDF and Raging are worthwhile, even in single target, and certainly Stat Cleave, which Mythic Plus has a lot of. Now, the other build that I've seen played a bit when it comes to Mythic Plus and things is more of a Fire and Brimstone kind of build. Now, I played this build a little bit during beta. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I didn't play it maybe as much as I should have. So Fire and Brimstone causes your incinerates to cleave on targets around them. They've removed the shard generation clause from Fire and Brimstone. It no longer generates more shards. However, it's confusing to some people. So if you cast an incinerate with Fire and Brimstone on 5 targets, you'll get 0.2 shards when you cast the spell. However, if the immolates crit, whenever immolate crits, it gives you 0.1 extra additional soul shard fragments. So people are getting it mixed up and seeing, hey, my Fire and Brimstone's giving me an extra half a shard whenever I cast it. It's the same shard just casting 1 incinerate, but if the multiple cleaved incinerates crit, if 2 or 3 do, you'll get 0.2 shards, 0.3 shards. So you can get a little bit extra, but there's no guaranteed extra shard value from Fire and Brimstone like there used to be in Shadowlands and before. This build still playing CDF, still playing Roaring Blaze, all the above. You are playing 2 points in Burn to Ashes, Ritual of Ruin, 1 point in Master Ritualist, Avatar Destruction, Chaos Incarnate, Embers, Double Madness, and your Infernal. Now, the thing with this build, Fire and Brimstone, your Incinerates Cleave, you have Havoc. You don't have Cry Havoc or Pandemonium here because you're casting a lot of Rain of Fires. You're casting a lot of AoE spells. You can get some value here, but your Incinerates are cleaving, so there's not as much necessarily Havoc, or I guess, Pandemonium / Cry Havoc relevancy, and no points in rolling Havoc. Now, it's also a bit odd having 1 point in your Infernal being a 3-minute CD. You certainly want Infernal. It does feel a bit awkward having no Crashing Chaos or Infernal Brand and no Grand Warlock's Design, but the build and testing has proven to be pretty strong. So 2 different builds here. I played the other build a little bit more with Kata, CDF, the full Infernal Empowerment with Crashing Chaos and Grand Warlock's Design. Either way, both builds are good. If you like Fire and Brimstone, give it a shot. Both of them seem pretty similar when it comes to Mythic Plus settings. Now, when it comes to gems in Dragonflight, you're limited to 1 Primalist gem at a time, and the one you want to acquire is the Fierce Illimited Diamond, granting 75 primary stat and 66 haste. Now, if you're looking for more just general quality gems you can wear more than one of, the Quick Ephemeral grants a whopping 88 haste. However, this is a pure secondary stat gem. There are a handful of gems that have 2 secondary stats on them, for example, like Keen Ephemeral, granting 70 haste and 33 mastery, and Keen Netherite granting 70 mastery and 33 haste. Now, if you're playing Affliction or Demonology, chances are high you're going to want either Quick Ephemeral, Keen Ephemeral, or Keen Netherite with your 1 Fierce Illimited Diamond. If you're playing Destruction, Crafty Ephemeral granting 70 haste and 33 crit, or the Crafty Alexstrasite granting 70 crit and 33 haste are possibly the better option for you, but in the long run, Sims would be the best way to tell what gems are best for your own character. Getting into Enchants, Sophic Devotion is going to be the weapon enchant you're after in Dragonflight, and it is a primary stat increase for 15 seconds whenever it procs on your main weapon. Your Cloak enchant will be Homebound Speed, which is unsurprisingly a speed increase. Your Chest enchant will be Waking Stats, which is a baseline stat increase on your chest. Now, Bracers are an odd spot. You have Devotion with Speed being theoretically your best enchant in Dragonflight. However, Eternal Intellect is still an option from Shadowlands due to the fact that it's not eye level capped or restricted by any means. So theoretically, you still can get Intellect on your Bracers, but we'll see if that lasts in the actual Dragonflight launch. If that doesn't last, Devotion of Speed is the best option. On your legs, you want to acquire Frozen Spell Thread. Now, you can make these yourself if you're a tailor, or you can work order them from a tailor somewhere to get the actual Intellect and Stamina increase on your legs. Any caster can get these in the game via a work order, even if you're not a tailor. Your boots, you want Planesrunner's Breeze on, which is, unsurprisingly, a speed increase. And your ring is most likely Devotion of Haste. However, it could be Mastery, depending on what your spec you're playing. The best way to tell is going to be running a raidboss.com sim for your own character to tell on your actual ring enchant. Now, as far as other enhancements are concerned in Dragonflight, your main flask or phial will actually be Phial of Elemental Chaos, which grants secondary stats in a random bonus effect and lasts half an hour. Your main potion will be Elemental Potion of Ultimate Power, granting a large amount of primary stat for half a minute on a 5-minute cooldown. You'll want to use Howling Runes in your weapon to give you a large amount of haste for 2 hours, very similar to Oils and Shadowlands. And as far as food is concerned, Grand Banquet with Kalawak, which is a feast, grants you 76 primary stat. If you don't have feast though, things like Faded Fortune Cookies, which gives the same amount of primary stat, or Timely Demise / Sizzling Seafood Medley give either pure haste or a mix of haste and mastery, which will most likely be your best bet when it comes to personal food in Dragonflight. So when it comes to Destro's 2-piece and 4-piece tier bonuses in Dragonflight, it is called the Scalesworn Cultist set, and it's interesting. So the 2-piece Consuming Soul Shards is a chance to grant you Chaos Maelstrom, increasing your crit strike chance by 10% for 10 seconds. So Consuming Soul Shards, Shadow Burn, Rate of Fire, Chaos Bolt. Now, so basically, they could have made it just Chaos Bolt, making it just Consuming Shards gives you the effects of Mythic Plus if you're spamming Rate of Fire, potentially, a chance to proc it. It's nice. Chaos Bolt always crits, so this is a flat damage increase to Chaos Bolt, because Chaos Bolt's damage is further increased by your crit strike chance. It's a bit of a bump to Chaos Bolt's damage. It'll maybe bump some damage up of like Incinerate, Immolate, Conflagrate if they're critting more just in general, maybe Rate of Fire crits. It's nice. It feels like what a 2-piece should actually be. Now the 4-piece, your critical strikes deal 208% damage instead of the usual 200. It's sort of bland, a bit boring, but in the end, it is free damage. Once again, Chaos Bolt always crit, so it's even more crit strike damage to Chaos Bolt. It does feel sort of good playing Chaos Incarnate, potentially, for maximum master benefit, and then having that max master benefit amplified even more by 208% crit versus 200. Very minuscule, not like a huge amount of synergy there, but it's something. The 4-piece was reworked a few weeks after it came out. It used to be some Cleave-based 4-piece, which only worked really in Cleave settings. It was really bad. So, like, while that might not seem incredibly exciting for a 4-piece, it's better than what we had. From A to F, I give it a solid, probably like a B-. It's fine. The 2-piece feels much more exciting than the 4-piece, but in the end, it's damage. If it's undertuned, hopefully they buff it, and I doubt it's overtuned. Let's put it that way. So when it comes to Destruction single target opener, the things you want to keep in mind are that you're trying to min-max around Madness of the Azakir uptime, Eradication uptime, while casting Channel Demon Fire basically on cooldown and keeping Roaring Blades up as well to buff your fire spells. Now as far as your opener is concerned, you're going to precast a Soulfire into Summon Infernal, Conflagrate, cast a Chaos Bolt for Eradication as well as Madness buff uptime, Channel Demon Fire, Chaos Bolt, Conflagrate, and then begin dumping Chaos Bolts while trying to weave in random Incinerates when you can, because Burn to Ashes caps out at 4 stacks max. Now, in your opener with your Infernal down, Mass Shard Gen coming in, Soul Conduit procs, all of that, chances are pretty high you're going to come close to overcapping on shards if you weave in Incinerates. So, you're probably going to sit at max stacks of Burn to Ashes for a while, maybe weaving an Incinerate or 2 in when you can. But the big thing here, make sure you're casting Chaos Bolts to not overcap on shards, cast CDF, being Channel Demon Fire, basically on cooldown, as long as you have Eradication and Roaring Blaze up in the target, and cast Soulfire on cooldown. Now, between Soulfire, Channel Demon Fire with Raging Demon Fire, they will both give you essentially a permanent uptime on Immolate your dot. Now, what you're seeing here with me casting more Soulfires is a 45-second cooldown, but due to the talent Decimation, it greatly reduces Soulfire's cooldown when you hit a target that is below 50% health. The dummy I'm hitting is at 0%, so we're getting a large cooldown reduction on Soulfire. TLDR Soulfire, cast it on cooldown with Roaring Blaze up, Eradication up, Channel Demon Fire, the same thing, Roaring Blaze, Eradication, and besides that, you want to cast Chaos Bolt, X spell like Incinerate, and then Chaos Bolt, min-maxing around Madness of the Azakir, while making sure to not overcap on Burn to Ashes stacks, if at all possible. Okay, so when it comes to Destro's AOE opener, there are a handful of different builds you can play. Some builds play Cataclysm, some builds play Inferno over Cataclysm. Now, if you're playing Cataclysm, you can open on a Cata, which applies Immolate to every mob hit, which gives you quick flashpoint stacks. If you're not playing Cataclysm and playing Inferno, you have to apply Immolate manually to as many mobs as you want. But the big thing here, I'm playing Cataclysm. I'm also playing Cry Havoc, so I'm going to end up opening on a precast, or I guess cast Cataclysm, whenever the pack's actually pulled. Cataclysm gives early flashpoint stacks right into Summon Infernal, Channel Demon Fire, then I'll cast a Rain of Fire here to dump some shards, go into my Havoc, conflict rate and begin casting chaos bolts and or rain of fires here. Now it'll depend on how many shards you have. I come close to overcapping a little bit here due to soul conduit, infernal discharge regen, all the above. So if you're playing Cry Havoc, your chaos bolts will indeed cleave mobs that are around the ones being hit by your cleaved chaos bolts. Now once again, in your opener, so much shard gen, so many refunds. Sometimes you weave rain of fire, sometimes you weave chaos bolts. But the big thing here, spending shards, not overcapping. You've got all your CDs rolling at once. Pop your trinket with your infernal on pull, and this is where the majority of your damage lies, while trying to also min-max around Madness of the Azek here, your legend or your talent, your old legendary ability, your talent now, because it buffs Rain of Fire as well as Chaos Bolt. Now outside of that, as long as you're playing Channel Demon Fire with Raging Demon Fire, it should basically keep Immolate applied to every mob permanently. So all you have to do is just cast Cataclysm on cooldown, cast CDF on cooldown, cast Havoc on cooldown, cast Rain of Fire as your Chaos Bolts, and mostly go from there. This should give you around a 2-minute Infernal roughly in Mythic Plus, and that's the gist of it. Now, if you're playing Fire and Brimstone, the opener is nearly the same. You'll typically just cast a few more Rain of Fires, depending what you're doing. That builds more for like mass AoE, which you can totally play, it's fine. If you're in 2 targets, you'll cast Chaos Bolts and Havoc. If you're in mass AoE, cast AoE-based Incinerates, cast Rain of Fires. Both the builds are similar. I think the Cataclysm, Roaring Blaze, just non-Fire and Brimstone build is a little better in single target, but they're both very good at mass AoE output, which is what Destro is known for. So when it comes to Havoc usage as a Destro lock, there are a couple of different ways it can be used, either for shard generation or to cleave Chaos Bolts and Incinerates and things like that. Now, typically you'll have 2 mobs, both which typically have Immolate already applied to them. If they don't, you can apply the Immolate in the Havoc window initially, but let's say both have Immolate on them. You have a few flashpoint stacks rolling if they're above 80% health. You'll apply your Havoc at roughly 3.5-ish shards, cast a conflict rate, and begin spamming Chaos Bolts. Chaos Bolt, fill with Incinerate, or other conflict rates if possible, cast another Chaos Bolt. And that's typically the gist of your Havoc window. Now, if you're using it for shard generation, instead of casting Chaos Bolts, you'll typically have Immolates rolling. You'll apply your Havoc and cast conflict rates and Incinerates if need be to generate shards, and then cast Rain of Fires, which is what you see at times in Mythic Plus, depending what you're doing, sometimes to fuel these huge Rain of Fire windows. But the majority of the time in raiding and fights like that, you'll see Havoc being used to launch Chaos Bolts multiple times, quickly, back to back, dealing a large amount of priority damage as well as cleave-based damage. And this is what makes Destro Lock very potent in a lot of raid settings. The ability to snap cleave on ad that spawns with massive Chaos Bolt Havoc cleave, but also doing big damage to the boss. Now, when it comes to pets, you have 4 options as a Warlock, and it is your Imp, Voidwalker, Fell Hunter, or Sayad. Now, when it comes to Mythic Plus, your best option, hands down, what you're going to play in 99.9% of every scenario in Mythic Plus is going to be your Fell Hunter. It brings a baseline interrupt in Spell Lock and a purge called Devour Magic, both of which are very good Mythic Plus based settings, even at times in raiding. Now, as far as raiding itself is concerned, the 3 pets of real option are your Imp, your Fell Hunter, and your Sayad. Unfortunately, your Voidwalker, while it does bring a bit of AoE damage with Consuming Shadows, is just not worth it the vast majority of the time. The Imp is a range-based caster versus the Fell Hunter and Sayad being melee-based casters. So if there's multiple adds on a fight that spawn, the Imp can just turn from left to right and start attacking them versus the Fell Hunter and the Sayad having to run between them. So you lose a little bit of DPS there. However, both Imp damage and Fell Hunter damage is normalized. They are one and the same. The Imp brings a Singe magic effect, which can be useful in raiding, removing a harmful magic effect from a player. The Sayad brings a Whiplash ability, which this separates this pet from every other one, essentially making it your best option in single target if no other mobs are spawning or you can maintain the buff. The Whiplash effect applies a damage increase to the target the Sayad is hitting once every 6 seconds, essentially when it stacks to full after a minute, making it take 10% more damage from the Sayad compared to the Imp, the Voidwalker, or the Fell Hunter. If that effect is not applied, or if it drops, obviously you're losing damage. If that effect's not applied in some way, shape, or form, all of pet damage is normalized outside of that. The Voidwalker might do a little more AoE with Consuming Shadows. The Imp might do a little more at range, swapping targets faster. But for the most part, outside of that, pet damage is normalized. So the best single target option, if there's one target, Sayad. Best pet in Mythic Plus, Fell Hunter. If there are multiple targets in the raid, you don't need to kick from your Fell Hunter, play the Imp. So thanks for watching, guys. That should just about wrap it up. Hopefully it helped answer any questions you might have had about Destruction in Dragonflight. And I have to say, I think Destro's in a pretty good spot for Vault of the Incarnates, Mythic Plus, and just general S1 play in Dragonflight. We might not be as strong as Demonology and pure single target. We might not have as much on-demand burst as Affliction does. I think we're right in the middle of both when it comes to, like, you know, heavy AoE and heavy single target. But the good thing is that Destro is customizable. It is probably the most customizable of any Warlock spec. Single target, stat cleave, spread cleave, mass AoE, whatever other kind of scenario you can think of, it can do it. And it can do it in a pretty strong manner. Now, I do think, might be a bit of a stretch here, but I do think Destro could very well be one of the sleeper specs heading into Vault of the Incarnates, because it's just good, like we said, in nearly every setting, and its single target is not that far behind Demo. Demo's good at single target and stat cleave, but if there's a lot of movement on the fight and you're trying to play another portal, Destro could very, very well be the play. And there are a lot of good cleave fights in the raid, so we will see where it goes. If there's any questions you guys might have had that I missed, put them down below in the comment section. I will be sure to get back to you. Once again, any weak Warcraft add-ons or profiles you saw, links to my Twitter, my Twitch, and my Discord down below. We can get them for free. !WA in chat for either of those. And I also want to give one huge shout out to my patrons for the end of the video. Once again, thank you guys a million times for all support on Patreon. I really, truly appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here as well as down in the video description below. At this current point in time, we have about 3 days until Dragonflight launch, maybe even a bit less when you're watching this video. I'm pumped. Destro looks solid. It might not be S3, S4 Destro like we saw in Sepulchre, but it's good. Destro's going to be exciting to play. I'm pumped for it. And like I said, it could very well be one of the sleeper specs heading into Vault of the Incarnates. Everyone's pumped about Demonology. They're pumped about Pit Lords, everything else, and they're focusing on AF being bad in single target. But Destro can do both pretty well. So we'll see where it goes. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, smash the like and sub buttons below. It helps out a ton. And I will catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.